Clara had never felt poorer than the night her own sister walked down the aisle toward the rich fiancé who had promised to marry her. Betrayed, homeless, and desperate, she took the only job she could find, as a maid in a mansion where people measured worth by diamonds and family names. Then everything changed. During a lavish gathering, a little girl slipped near the pool and cried for help while the guests froze in panic. Clara didn't hesitate. She dove in, pulled the child to safety, and held her until her trembling breaths calmed. The girl's single father thanked Clara with quiet eyes full of gratitude, but his billionaire relatives only saw a poor maid touching one of their own. They mocked her clothes, accused her of chasing wealth, and warned her never to forget her place. Clara lowered her head, swallowing every insult, until the room went completely silent. A powerful guest arrived, searching for the mysterious tycoon who had just bought half the city's companies. To everyone's shock, he walked straight to the little girl's father. The poor dad was the business legend they had begged to impress. And now he wanted only one thing: justice for Clara. The silence lasted only 3 seconds, but to Clara, it felt like the whole world had stopped breathing. The powerful guest was Mr. Edmund Langford, a silver-haired investment banker whose name people spoke with the same nervous respect they reserved for judges and kings. He had entered the Rothmore estate with 2 assistants behind him, a black leather folder under one arm, and a gaze sharp enough to slice through lies. Everyone at the poolside terrace knew him. Lord Malcolm Rothmore straightened his jacket. Lady Beatrice Rothmore lifted her chin. Clara's former fiancé, Damien Voss, who stood near the champagne fountain with Clara's sister on his arm, suddenly forgot to smile. "Mr. Langford," Lord Malcolm said, stepping forward with a wide, greedy grin, "what an honor. We weren't told you would be attending tonight." "I wasn't planning to," Mr. Langford replied. His voice was calm, but the kind of calm that made powerful people nervous. "We received word that Mr. Adrian Vale was here." A ripple passed through the crowd. Clara blinked. Adrian Vale. She had heard the name whispered in the kitchen earlier that evening. One footman had said Adrian Vale was the most secretive business tycoon in the country. Another maid had said he had bought bankrupt factories, failing tech companies, shipping routes, and half the commercial district in under 2 years. Someone else said no one had seen his face in public for a long time. Clara's eyes moved slowly toward the quiet single father standing beside her. His wet sleeve still clung to his arm from where he had knelt beside his daughter. His dark hair was slightly messy. His expression had not changed. The little girl, Lily, stood wrapped in a blanket, holding his hand. Mr. Langford walked past Lord Malcolm as if the man were furniture. Then he stopped in front of Adrian and bowed his head respectfully. "Mr. Vale," he said, "forgive the interruption. The board is waiting for your final approval." The terrace froze. A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered near the marble steps. Lady Beatrice's face drained of color. "Mr. Vale." Damien took a step back. Clara's sister, Vanessa, who had been smirking moments ago, stared at Adrian as though the earth had opened beneath her jeweled shoes. Adrian did not look at any of them. His eyes were on Clara. She stood barefoot on the terrace, her maid's uniform soaked from the pool, her hair plastered to her face, her hands trembling from cold and shock. A few minutes earlier, Lady Beatrice had called her a desperate servant. Damien had laughed. Vanessa had said Clara had always known how to make a scene. And Clara had accepted it. Because what could a poor maid say against billionaires? Adrian removed his coat and placed it over Clara's shoulders. The gesture was simple, but in that room it landed like thunder. "Mr. Langford," Adrian said quietly, "please wait inside." "Of course." Mr. Langford turned, but Adrian raised a hand. "And one more thing." Everyone waited. Adrian's voice did not rise, but it carried across the terrace. "No one leaves. Lady Beatrice swallowed. Adrian, surely you don't mean. I mean exactly that, he said. For the first time, he looked at his relatives. Not with anger. That would have been easier for them. He looked at them with disappointment, so deep it made their pride shrink. For 5 years, Adrian said, you believed I was a failed man living on the mercy of your family. You believed my daughter and I were burdens. You believed that because I did not dress like you, speak like you, or beg for your approval, I was beneath you. Lord Malcolm tried to laugh. There has clearly been a misunderstanding. No, Adrian said, there has been a revelation. Lily's small fingers tightened around his hand. Clara felt the weight of the coat on her shoulders. It smelled faintly of cedar and rain. She wanted to step away, to disappear back into the servants' corridor where no one looked at her. But Adrian's presence beside her made it impossible to vanish. He turned to Lily. Go with Mrs. Nora for a moment, sweetheart. The elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Nora, hurried forward. Her eyes were wet with tears. Unlike the rest of the staff, she had always been kind to Clara, offering her tea on her first morning and warning her which silver cabinets stuck when opened. Lily looked up at Clara. You saved me, she whispered. Clara bent slightly, pulling the coat closed around herself. You were very brave. Lily shook her head. No, you were. Then Mrs. Nora led her inside. The moment the child was gone, the air changed. Adrian faced the crowd again. Now, he said, we will discuss what happened here. Lady Beatrice lifted one gloved hand to her pearls. This is absurd. The girl overstepped. She is staff. She had no right to throw herself into the middle of a family event. Clara stared at her. No right. A child had been in danger. There had been no time for permission. Adrian's jaw tightened. She had every right to save my daughter. But she touched Lily, snapped one of the cousins, a woman named Cecily, whose gown glittered like frost. She could have waited for security. Lily did not have time to wait for security, Adrian said. Cecily's mouth opened, then closed. Damien cleared his throat, trying to slide back into importance. Mr. Vale, I'm sure everyone is simply overwhelmed. No harm was meant. Adrian turned toward him. And you are? Damien's confident smile faltered. Damien Voss, Voss Holdings. We have a meeting scheduled next week, actually. I've been trying to reach your office regarding a possible acquisition. Adrian studied him. Voss Holdings. Damien brightened. Yes, my family's company. We're expanding aggressively into logistics and urban development. Interesting, Adrian said. I read a report this morning about Voss Holdings. Damien's smile stiffened. Clara felt Vanessa shift behind him. A report, Damien asked. Debt restructuring, inflated asset values, unpaid contractors, a pending labor complaint. Adrian paused. And a marriage announcement placed strategically before your funding round. Damien went pale. Vanessa's diamond bracelet clinked softly as her hand dropped from his arm. That's business, Damien said quickly. Complex, of course, nothing improper. Adrian looked at Clara. Were you engaged to him? The question struck her like a bell. Everyone turned. Clara wanted to say nothing, to protect what little dignity she had left, but Adrian had asked softly, not to expose her, but to give her the chance to speak. She drew a slow breath. Yes, she said, I was. Vanessa laughed, but the sound was brittle. Oh, Clara, don't be dramatic, it was never official. Clara looked at her sister. For weeks she had avoided saying Vanessa's name aloud because it felt like touching a wound. Vanessa, who had shared her bed when they were children during cold winters. Vanessa, who had braided her hair before school. Vanessa, who had cried at their parents' funeral with her head on Clara's shoulder. Vanessa, who had taken Damien's ring from Clara's dresser the night before the wedding and worn it herself the next morning. It was official enough for him to ask me to sell our parents' house to help pay his debts, Clara said. A murmur swept through the terrace. Damien's eyes flashed. You signed willingly. I signed because you said we were building a life together. Vanessa rolled her eyes, and then he realized he wanted someone better suited to him. The words landed hard. But this time, Clara did not lower her head. Maybe it was the cold, maybe it was the shock, maybe it was the way Adrian stood beside her, silent and steady. As though her truth mattered. Better suited, Clara repeated. Vanessa lifted her chin. Yes. You mean richer looking, louder, easier to show off. I mean not embarrassing. That word. Embarrassing. It had chased Clara since childhood. She was embarrassing because she wore second-hand shoes, embarrassing because she worked after school, embarrassing because she cried quietly and apologized too much, embarrassing because she loved people who treated love like a ladder. Clara's hands curled into the coat. Adrian's voice cut through the tension. Mr. Langford. The banker stepped back onto the terrace immediately, as if he had been waiting just beyond the doors. Yes, sir. Cancel the meeting with Voss Holdings. Damien lurched forward. Mr. Vale, please, that meeting could save my company. I know. You can't decide based on some servant's sob story. The moment the words left his mouth, he knew he had made a mistake. Adrian's eyes hardened. This servant saved my daughter while you watched. Damien looked around for support, but the crowd had begun to shift away from him like a tide withdrawing from a sinking ship. And she is not a sob story, Adrian continued. She is a person. Clara's throat tightened. A person. It had been so long since anyone in a room like this had called her that. Adrian looked at Mr. Langford again. Have our legal team review every document connected to the sale of Clara's family home and any financial transfer involving Mr. Voss. If there was coercion, fraud, or misrepresentation, I want it pursued. Damien exploded. You can't do this. I can. Vanessa gripped Damien's arm. Damien, say something. But Damien was staring at Adrian with the expression of a man watching doors close one by one. Lady Beatrice stepped forward, recovering enough of her arrogance to speak. Adrian, you are allowing sentiment to ruin a business opportunity. Adrian gave a faint, humorless smile. No, I am allowing character to reveal value. Lord Malcolm's face reddened. You deceived this family. I protected my daughter from people who measured her worth by my bank account. We took you in. You tolerated me, Adrian said. There is a difference. The old man flinched. Clara looked between them, trying to understand. If Adrian was the tycoon everyone feared, why had he lived under their contempt? Why had he let them call him useless? Why had he brought Lily here at all? As if sensing her confusion, Adrian's gaze softened. My late wife Elise was a Rothmore, he said. When she died, her family insisted Lily needed their influence, their name, their protection. I let them believe I had lost everything because I wanted to see whether they loved Lily without wealth attached to her. His voice grew lower. They failed. Lady Beatrice whispered, Elise would be ashamed of you. For the first time, pain crossed Adrian's face. Then it was gone. No, he said, Elise would be ashamed of what you became. No one answered. The pool lights shimmered across the terrace, reflecting off diamonds, champagne glasses, and faces stripped bare of confidence. A few guests looked away, pretending sudden interest in the hedges. Others stared at Clara as though seeing her for the first time. But Clara knew how quickly attention could become another kind of cage. She pulled Adrian's coat tighter. Mr. Vale, she said quietly. He turned to her. Please, she said, I don't want revenge. Damien exhaled in relief. Vanessa's smirk twitched back to life. Clara looked at them, then finished. I want the truth. Adrian's expression changed. Not surprise, but respect. The truth, he said, is usually stronger. He faced Mr. Langford. Begin there. Mr. Langford nodded once. The party ended without music. Guests left in murmurs, their expensive shoes whispering over marble paths. The orchestra packed away their instruments. The champagne fountain continued to flow absurdly, spilling gold bubbles into glasses no one wanted. Clara went to the servants' quarters to change. Her hands shook as she unbuttoned the wet uniform. She expected the other maids to stare or whisper, but when she entered the small dressing room, they stood aside silently. One young maid handed her a dry towel. Another placed a spare dress on the bench. Mrs. Nora came in last. "My dear," she said softly, "are you hurt?" Clara shook her head, though she was not sure it was true. Her body was fine. Her heart felt as if it had survived a storm, only to discover another one waiting. "I'm all right." Mrs. Nora studied her. People who are all right don't usually look like they're trying not to disappear. Clara gave a small, broken laugh. The housekeeper stepped closer. "Mr. Vale has asked that you come to the library when you're ready, not as staff, as his guest." Clara froze. "His guest?" "Yes." "I can't go to the library." "Why not?" Clara looked down at the plain dress in her hands. "Because I'm a maid." Mrs. Nora's eyes sharpened. "Tonight you were braver than every silk-covered coward in that house." Clara swallowed. "Wear the dress," Mrs. Nora said. "Lift your chin and don't apologize for breathing." 15 minutes later, Clara walked through the back hallway toward the library. She had never entered that room before. Servants were told to clean it only under supervision. It had tall walnut shelves, green-shaded lamps, and portraits of Rothmore ancestors who looked down their painted noses at everyone below. Adrian stood near the fireplace with Lily asleep on a sofa nearby, wrapped in a quilt. When he saw Clara, he stepped forward. "Thank you for coming." His voice was gentle now, stripped of the steel it had carried on the terrace. Clara folded her hands. "Mrs. Nora said you asked for me." "I did." He glanced at the chair across from him. "Please sit." She hesitated. "Clara," he said, "you are not being summoned." The words loosened something in her chest. She sat. Adrian took the chair opposite, leaving space between them, respectful and calm. The firelight softened the angles of his face. Without the crowd around him, he looked less like a tycoon and more like a tired father who had been carrying secrets too long. "Lily is safe because of you," he said. "I only did what anyone should have done. But no one else did." Clara looked toward the sleeping child. She called for help. "She has nightmares sometimes," Adrian said. "Since her mother died, she's afraid people won't come when she calls." Clara's heart squeezed. "I'm glad I heard her." "So am I." Silence settled. This time it was not uncomfortable. Adrian reached for a folder on the table beside him. "Mr. Langford has already sent preliminary information. I need to ask you something, and you do not have to answer tonight." Clara braced herself. "Did Damien Voss pressure you into selling your parents' home?" Her fingers went cold. The family home was not grand. It had a leaking roof, a narrow kitchen, and a garden where her mother had grown basil in chipped pots, but it had been theirs. After her parents died, Clara had clung to it like proof that love had once lived somewhere solid. Damien had come into her life when grief made her trusting. He was charming. He bought her flowers. He said he admired humble girls because they understood loyalty. When he proposed, she believed life had finally opened a door. Then came the debts. He cried in her kitchen. He said his father would cut him off if he failed. He said they would lose their future. He said love required sacrifice. He promised he would buy the house back after the wedding. So Clara sold it. 2 weeks later, she found Vanessa wearing Clara's engagement ring. The wedding invitation arrived the next morning. Clara closed her eyes. Yes, she said, he pressured me. Adrian's voice stayed calm. Do you have messages, contracts, any proof? I kept everything. Good. Her eyes opened. You believe me? Yes. So quickly. Yes. Why? Adrian looked toward his sleeping daughter. Because I know what it sounds like when someone tells the truth, even though it hurts them. Clara looked down. No one had ever said anything like that to her. I don't want to owe you, she whispered. You don't. But if your lawyers help me, they will help because a wrong was done. That still costs money. Adrian leaned back slightly, then considerate payment for saving Lily. I didn't save her for payment. I know. His answer was immediate. Clara looked up. Adrian's eyes were steady. That is why you deserve it. Before Clara could answer, Lily stirred on the sofa. Papa, she murmured. Adrian rose instantly and went to her. I'm here. Lily blinked sleepily. Her gaze found Clara. Is Miss Clara leaving? Clara's breath caught at the word miss. Not Maid. Miss Clara. I should, Clara said softly. You need rest. Lily pushed herself up. Will you come back? Adrian looked at Clara, letting the choice be hers. Clara thought of the servant's room, her narrow cot, the bag of clothes she had carried from place to place after losing the house. She thought of Vanessa's laugh, Damien's betrayal, Lady Beatrice's insults. She thought of Lily's hand reaching out of the water. Yes, Clara said, I'll come back. Lily smiled and fell asleep again. The next morning, the Rothmore estate looked different. Not because anything had changed in its marble halls or manicured gardens, but because everyone inside now understood the balance of power had shifted. Clara woke before dawn out of habit. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the pool, the terrace, Adrian's coat, Mr. Langford bowing his head. She also remembered she was still employed as a maid. That fact became clear when another maid burst into the room and whispered, Lady Beatrice is asking for you. Clara sat up. Now? Yes. Mrs. Nora appeared in the doorway before Clara could move. Lady Beatrice can wait. The maid looked terrified. She said immediately. And I said she can wait. Mrs. Nora entered fully, carrying a folded cream blouse and dark skirt. Mr. Vale instructed that Miss Clara is no longer to perform staff duties. Clara stared at her. What? He said you are to rest today. I can't just rest, I need this job. You still have it if you want it, but he also said you are not to be ordered around by Lady Beatrice. Clara almost laughed at the impossibility of that sentence. No one in the Rothmore estate disobeyed Lady Beatrice. Yet 20 minutes later, when Clara entered the breakfast room, Lady Beatrice was waiting with a face carved from ice. The family sat around a long, polished table. Lord Malcolm was at the head, pretending to read a newspaper. Cecily sipped tea with shaking hands. Vanessa and Damien were there too, though Clara had no idea why they had not fled. Perhaps they had nowhere better to go. Or perhaps they still believed wealth could be talked back into existence. Adrian stood by the window, speaking quietly on the phone. Lily sat at the table eating toast, her legs swinging. The moment Lily saw Clara, she brightened. Miss Clara. Every adult flinched. Clara smiled despite herself. Good morning, Lily. Lady Beatrice set down her cup. How charming, the maid has been promoted to family pet. Adrian ended his call. The room went still. Apologize, he said. Lady Beatrice blinked. Excuse me. To Clara. I will do no such thing. Then you may leave my house. Lord Malcolm slammed the newspaper down. Your house. Adrian turned to him. Yes. Lord Malcolm's face reddened. This estate has belonged to the Rothmore family for generations. It belonged to the Rothmore family, Adrian said, until your debts forced the bank to quietly arrange a sale. You were so concerned with appearing wealthy that you didn't read the final ownership documents carefully. Cecily gasped. Lady Beatrice gripped the edge of the table. Adrian's voice remained even. I purchased Belmont Estate 6 months ago through a holding company. The room erupted. You bought our home, Lady Beatrice whispered. I protected Lily's inheritance from being swallowed by your vanity. Our vanity, Lord Malcolm barked. Yes, Adrian said, the charity galas funded by loans, the private jets leased on credit, the pearls refinanced twice, the staff underpaid while you hosted dinners for investors you hoped would save you. The servants standing along the walls stared at the floor, but Clara saw their eyes widen. Lady Beatrice looked as if she might faint from fury. You had no right. I had every right, Adrian said, and I allowed you to remain because Lily loved the gardens and because I hoped you might show kindness when you thought I had nothing to offer. His gaze moved from one face to another. You did not. Vanessa rose suddenly. This is family business. Damien and I should go. Adrian looked at her. Sit down. Her knees seemed to fold before her pride could stop them. Adrian walked to the table and placed a document in front of Damien. What is this? Damien asked. A copy of the contract Clara signed when she sold her family home. My legal team found irregularities. Damien scoffed. Already, that's impossible. Not when one of the witnesses you used is a man currently under investigation for forged real estate transfers. Damien's face slackened. Clara's heart began to pound. Adrian continued. You told Clara the money was needed for an emergency investment, but it was transferred into an account connected to your wedding expenses. Vanessa's head snapped toward Damien. What? Damien whispered, not now. Adrian slid another paper across the table. The venue deposit, the designer gown, the imported flowers, paid in part with funds from Clara's house. Clara's breath left her. She had imagined many things. She had imagined Damien used the money to save his company. She had imagined he wasted it. She had not imagined she had paid for the wedding where her sister replaced her. Vanessa stared at Damien in horror, but not the kind of horror Clara wished she had. It was not guilt. It was fear of embarrassment. Damien, Vanessa hissed, tell me that isn't true. Damien glared at Adrian. This is private information. No, Clara said. Everyone looked at her. Her voice shook, but she kept going. No, it was private when I cried alone in an empty house I no longer owned. It was private when my sister wore my ring. It was private when you let me think I was stupid for trusting you, but you used my parents' home to pay for your lies. So no, Damien, it isn't private anymore. For once, Damien had nothing to say. Vanessa's eyes flashed. Clara, don't act innocent. You always wanted people to pity you. Clara looked at her sister. Really looked. She saw the perfect makeup, the flawless hair, the silk dress. She saw the girl who had once cried when their mother sold her necklace to pay school fees. She saw the woman who had mistaken cruelty for victory. Did you love him? Clara asked. Vanessa recoiled. What? Did you love Damien, or did you just love taking him from me? The room held its breath. Vanessa's lips parted. No answer came. That was answer enough. Clara nodded slowly. I thought so. The shame on Vanessa's face lasted only a second before anger covered it. You think you've won because some rich man feels sorry for you. No, Clara said. I think I survived because I finally stopped believing people like you get to decide what I'm worth. Adrian looked at her with something like pride. Lord Malcolm pushed back his chair. Enough. Adrian, whatever you think we did, humiliating this family publicly helps no one. Adrian's expression hardened. Humiliation? You humiliated Clara in front of guests after she saved a child. You humiliated my daughter by treating her father like a stain. You humiliated every worker in this house by pretending their dignity costs less than your silverware. He turned to Mrs. Nora, who stood near the doorway. Please ask the staff to join us. Lady Beatrice stiffened. Absolutely not. But Mrs. Nora was already gone. One by one, the staff entered. Maids, gardeners, kitchen workers, footmen, drivers. They stood nervously near the walls, unsure whether they were witnessing a miracle or a disaster. Adrian faced them. Effective today, every employee of Belmont Estate will receive full back pay for all unpaid overtime from the past 5 years. Salaries will be adjusted above market rate, and anyone who wishes to leave will receive a generous severance and recommendation. A stunned silence followed. Then someone began to cry softly. The old gardener, Mr. Pavel, removed his cap with trembling hands. Mrs. Nora pressed a hand to her mouth. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Lady Beatrice whispered, "You are turning the staff against us." "No," Adrian said, "you did that yourselves." He looked at Clara. "And Clara will decide whether she wishes to continue working here in any role she chooses, or whether she wishes to pursue education, business, or rest. Whatever she chooses, she will have support." Clara could not speak. Support. Joys. Words she had almost forgotten belonged to people like her. Lily slipped from her chair and ran to Clara, wrapping her small arms around Clara's waist. "Choose to stay," Lily whispered. Clara looked down at her. Then at Adrian. Then at the staff, who watched her with hope and affection rather than judgment. "I don't know yet," Clara admitted. Adrian nodded. "Then you don't need to know today." That answer nearly broke her. Because everyone else had always demanded that Clara decide quickly, sacrifice quickly, forgive quickly, move on quickly. Adrian offered time. By noon, the news had already begun to spread. Not the whole truth. Rich families were experts at hiding the full truth, but enough. Adrian Vale, mysterious business tycoon, had revealed himself at Belmont Estate. The Rothmore family's fortune was not what it seemed. Voss Holdings was in trouble. A maid had saved Adrian Vale's daughter. By evening, reporters gathered near the estate gates. Clara watched them from an upstairs window, her heart uneasy. "I don't like them," Lily said beside her. Clara smiled faintly. "Reporters. Crowds. I don't like them either." Lily leaned against her side. "Papa says crowds make people forget they have hearts." "Your papa says wise things. He says sad things too." Clara looked at her. Lily traced a finger on the window glass. "After Mama died, people came to our house. They cried loudly. They hugged me too tight. But later, I heard them asking Papa about money." Clara crouched beside her. "I'm sorry. Grandmother said Papa wasn't enough for me." Clara's chest ached. "That wasn't kind. She says kind things when people watch." Children, Clara thought, heard everything adults believed they had hidden. Lily turned to her. "Did your sister say kind things when people watched?" Clara hesitated. "Yes," she said softly, "sometimes. But not when it mattered." Clara felt the truth settle between them. "No, not when it mattered." Lily nodded with the solemn wisdom of a child who had learned too early that adults could fail. Then she reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a small ribbon bracelet, purple and slightly frayed. "I made this for Mama before she got sick," Lily said, "but I didn't finish it in time." Clara's throat tightened. Lily held it out. "You can have it, because you came when I called." "Oh, Lily," Clara shook her head gently, "that belongs to your mother. Papa says love doesn't get smaller when you share it." Clara stared at the bracelet. Then she held out her wrist. Lily tied it carefully, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. "There," she said, "now you're brave officially." Clara laughed through tears. That was how Adrian found them a few minutes later. He paused in the doorway, his eyes moving from Lily's proud face to the bracelet on Clara's wrist. Something tender crossed his expression, but he kept his voice light. "Am I interrupting a ceremony?" "Yes," Lily said. "Miss Clara is brave officially now." "I see," Adrian bowed his head solemnly, "an important title." Clara stood, wiping her eyes quickly. Adrian pretended not to notice. "Mr. Langford has updates," he said, "but they can wait." Clara shook her head. "No, tell me." He studied her. "Are you sure?" "Yes." He nodded. "The sale of your parents' home can likely be challenged. It will take time, but there is a strong case. Damien's company is also under review by regulators. Several contractors have come forward after hearing about the investigation." Clara absorbed this slowly. So he might lose everything. He might lose what was built dishonestly. She looked down at the purple bracelet. "And Vanessa?" Adrian's voice softened. "That depends partly on what she knew." Clara closed her eyes. She wanted to say Vanessa knew everything. She wanted to condemn her. But some stubborn piece of love, bruised and weary, still remembered two little girls holding hands in the dark after thunder shook their bedroom windows. "I don't know what she knew," Clara said. "Then we will let facts speak." "Facts don't always heal things." "No," Adrian said, "but they stop lies from growing." The next day, Vanessa asked to see Clara. Mrs. Nora delivered the message with the expression of someone handing over spoiled milk. "You don't have to go," she said. Clara sat in the small sunroom overlooking the east garden. She had been trying to read one of the books Adrian sent from the library, but the same paragraph had blurred before her for 10 minutes. "Where is she?" "In the blue parlor, looking like a cat locked out in the rain." Despite herself, Clara smiled. Mrs. Nora softened. "Shall I tell her no?" Clara looked toward the garden. Once Vanessa had stolen peaches from a neighbor's tree and blamed Clara. Their mother had known the truth immediately. Later, Vanessa had sneaked half her dessert to Clara as apology and cried so hard Clara forgave her before the tears dried. But childhood apologies were easy. Adult betrayals had roots. "I'll see her," Clara said. Vanessa stood when Clara entered the parlor. Without the crowd, without Damien's arm to hold, she looked smaller. Her makeup could not hide the shadows under her eyes. She wore a pale blue dress Clara recognized from a magazine spread about wealthy brides-to-be. For a second, Clara saw not the sister who betrayed her, but the girl who had always been terrified of being poor. Vanessa spoke first. "You look different." Clara glanced down at her simple skirt and blouse. "I look dry." "That's not what I mean." Clara waited. Vanessa twisted her wedding ring, though the wedding had barely been 2 weeks ago. Damien left. Clara felt no satisfaction, only a tired emptiness. Where did he go? London, maybe. His lawyers said he needed distance from the situation. She laughed bitterly. The situation, that's what he called me too, I think. Clara said nothing. Vanessa looked at her sharply. Aren't you going to say I deserve it? Would it help? No. Then no. That seemed to unsettle Vanessa more than anger would have. She sank onto the sofa. I didn't know about the house money. Clara studied her. You wore my ring. Vanessa flinched. He said you gave it back. You believed him. I wanted to. There it was. Not innocence. Not exactly guilt. Something uglier and more human. Vanessa's eyes shone. He said you were unsure about marrying into his world. He said you were overwhelmed. He said you had sold the house because you wanted a fresh start. Then he said you stepped aside. Clara's hands tightened, and you never asked me. Vanessa's tears spilled over. I was afraid you'd say something that ruined it. The honesty cut deeper than a lie. Clara sat across from her. You were afraid I would tell the truth. Yes, Vanessa whispered. For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside, gardeners trimmed hedges under bright sky. Somewhere distant, Lily laughed. Vanessa wiped her cheeks angrily. I hated being poor, Clara. I hated charity clothes. I hated pretending not to care when girls at school laughed at our lunches. I hated counting coins. And you acted like love made it all bearable. It didn't, Clara said. It just made it survivable. Vanessa looked at her. Clara's voice trembled. I hated being poor too. I hated worrying about bills. I hated watching Mom skip dinner and pretend she wasn't hungry, but I never thought the way out was stepping on you. Vanessa covered her face. I'm sorry, she said. Clara closed her eyes. She had imagined those words so many times. In her imagination, they healed everything. In reality, they were only words sitting beside a wound too large to close quickly. I hear you, Clara said. Vanessa dropped her hands. That's all. For now. Pain crossed Vanessa's face. Can you forgive me? Clara looked at the sister she had loved, lost, and no longer knew how to hold. Maybe one day, she said, but not because you lost, and not because you're crying. If I forgive you, it will be because you become someone who understands what you did. Vanessa nodded slowly, tears sliding down her cheeks. For the first time in years, she did not argue. As Clara stood to leave, Vanessa whispered, Do you love him? Clara stopped at the door. Who? Vanessa gave her a look that, despite everything, was painfully sister-like. Adrian. Clara's heart stumbled. No, she said too quickly. Vanessa almost smiled. You always were terrible at lying. Clara left before her face could reveal more. The question followed her for days. Did she love Adrian? No. That was impossible. Gratitude was not love. Respect was not love. Safety was not love. And yet when Adrian entered a room, Clara noticed. When Lily ran to him, Clara's heart warmed. When he listened to the staff, not as a performance, but with genuine attention, Clara felt something inside her rearrange. Still, she kept her distance. Adrian seemed to understand. He never pushed, never asked for more than she offered. He invited her to sit in meetings with the estate manager because she understood the staff's needs. He asked her opinion on renovating the servants' quarters. He brought her books on business, law, and history after learning she had left school early to care for her parents. One afternoon, Clara found a notebook on the sunroom table with her name written on the cover. Inside, Adrian had written only one sentence. For every idea you were told was too small. Clara stared at it until the words blurred. She began writing that night. At first, her ideas were practical: fair schedules for staff, a fund for workers' children, repairs to old cottages on the estate grounds. Then they grew: a training program for young women leaving unstable homes, scholarships for domestic workers, legal aid for people tricked into predatory contracts. When Adrian read the pages, he did not smile politely and set them aside. He returned the next morning with questions. Real questions. How would you choose applicants? Who would manage funds? What partnerships would you need? How do we protect people from being exploited twice? Clara answered what she could and admitted what she could not. Adrian listened to both. 3 weeks after the pool incident, Clara stood in a conference room at Vale Tower, a building she had only seen from bus windows. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooked the city. People in tailored suits moved around the long table with tablets and documents. Mr. Langford sat to Adrian's right. Clara sat to his left, trying not to feel like a child wearing borrowed importance. Adrian opened the meeting. "We are establishing the Lily Vale Foundation," he said. "Its first initiative will focus on legal and educational support for low-income women facing financial coercion, employment abuse, and housing instability." Clara's heart pounded. He continued, "Clara will serve as founding program advisor." Several executives looked surprised. One man frowned. "Mr. Vale, with respect, does Miss Clara have administrative experience?" Clara's face warmed. Adrian turned to her. "Would you like to answer?" For one terrifying second, Clara wanted to disappear. Then she thought of Lady Beatrice telling her to remember her place. She thought of Damien calling her a servant sob story. She thought of Lily's purple bracelet. Clara lifted her chin. "I don't have administrative experience in the way you mean," she said, "but I have experience surviving the problems this foundation is meant to solve. I know how people in crisis are spoken to. I know how shame is used to keep them quiet. I know how hard it is to ask for help when help usually comes with judgment." The room quieted. "I'll need training," Clara continued. "I'll need people who know law, finance, and operations. But if this foundation is going to reach the people it claims to serve, it needs someone at the table who understands what it feels like to be outside the room." No one interrupted. Mr. Langford's mouth twitched into the smallest smile. Adrian looked around the table. Any further questions? There were none. After the meeting, Clara stepped into the hallway and released a breath. Adrian joined her. "You did well. I nearly fainted. But you didn't. I wanted to. That counts less." She laughed. He smiled then, not the controlled smile of a businessman, but something warmer, something that made Clara look away before she revealed too much. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. "The foundation." "The foundation, helping me, challenging the house sale, letting me sit in rooms where people question whether I belong." Adrian leaned against the window, looking out over the city. "When Elise became ill," he said, "I discovered that money solves many things, but not helplessness, not fear, not the loneliness of sitting in a hospital corridor while people discuss your life in terms you don't understand." Clara grew still. "After she died, people expected me to become harder," he continued. "For a while I did. I bought companies. I broke competitors. I turned grief into expansion because expansion was easier than feeling anything." His reflection in the glass looked distant. "Then Lily asked me whether being rich meant no one could make us sad again." Clara's chest tightened. "What did you say?" "I told her no." His voice softened. "And then I realized I had built an empire that could move markets, but I had not built anything that would answer her question with hope." He turned to Clara. "You reminded me what courage looks like when it has no audience." Clara's voice came out barely above a whisper. "There was an audience. Not when you jumped." The words stayed with her. That evening, the first major article was published. "The Maid Who Saved a Tycoon's Daughter." Clara hated the headline. By morning, there were more. From servant to advisor. Billionaire adin Vale, exposes rothmoi collapse. VOSS holdings under investigation. Some articles were kind, others were cruel. Strangers debated Clara's motives online. Some called her brave. Some said she was lucky. Some hinted she had planned everything. Clara stopped reading after the third day. But Vanessa read all of it. She came to Clara again, this time not in silk, but in a plain grey coat. Her face was pale, and for once she wore no jewelry. "I gave a statement," Vanessa said. Clara looked up from her notebook. "To whom?" "The investigators and Mr. Vale's lawyers." Clara's pulse quickened. "About Damien." Vanessa nodded. "About everything he told me, everything I ignored, the ring, the house, the way he coached me before the wedding in case you came. Clara went cold. Coached you? Vanessa's eyes filled. He thought you might try to stop it. He told me to say you were unstable if you showed up. Clara gripped the edge of the table. She had not gone to the wedding. She had stood outside the church for 1 minute, seen Vanessa through the open doors, and walked away before anyone noticed. "I'm sorry," Vanessa whispered. Clara looked at her sister and realized something strange. The apology still hurt, but it no longer controlled her. "Thank you for telling the truth," Clara said. Vanessa nodded, crying silently. Before she left, she removed a small envelope from her bag. "What's that?" Clara asked. "Money, not enough, not even close, but it's what I have from selling the jewelry Damien gave me." Clara stared at it. "I don't want to buy forgiveness," Vanessa said quickly. "I just don't want to keep anything that came from what he did to you." Clara took the envelope slowly. Their fingers brushed. For a moment, they were children again, passing secrets under blankets. Then Vanessa stepped back. "I'm going to stay with Aunt Myra," she said, "away from all this." "That's good. I want to become someone better." Clara looked at her. "Then become someone honest," she said. "Better can be vague." Vanessa gave a small, tearful laugh. "Honest," she repeated. "I'll start there." The legal battle over Clara's house took months. During that time, Belmont Estate transformed. The Rothmores moved out after Adrian gave them a choice: accept a quiet relocation with financial counseling and no public statement from him, or face a full exposure of their debts and mistreatment of staff. Lord Malcolm raged for 2 days. Lady Beatrice accused Adrian of destroying tradition. Cecily cried over losing access to the ballroom. In the end, they left. The staff watched from upper windows as cars carried away trunks, paintings, and whatever remained of Rothmore pride. No one cheered. But Mr. Pavel did whistle a cheerful tune while pruning roses afterward. Adrian did not turn Belmont into a monument to victory. He opened unused wings for foundation offices. He converted the old carriage house into classrooms. He repaired staff housing first, before touching the family suites. He let Lily choose paint colors for the children's reading room, which resulted in one wall being yellow, one blue, and one covered in hand-painted stars. Clara worked harder than she ever had as a maid, but for the first time, work did not feel like shrinking. She attended training sessions. She learned how non-profit budgets worked. She sat with lawyers and asked questions until she understood. She helped interview women applying for support and recognized in their lowered eyes the same shame she had carried. One woman, Mara, had been tricked into signing a loan for a boyfriend's business. Another, Elodie, had worked 3 years for a family who kept delaying wages. Another, June, had left home with 2 younger siblings and no documents because an uncle had controlled everything. Clara listened, not with pity, with recognition. After one session, she found Adrian waiting in the hallway with 2 cups of tea. "You look tired," he said. "I am. Good tired or bad tired?" Clara considered, heavy tired. He handed her the tea, that may be the most honest kind. She leaned against the wall beside him. The hallway smelled of fresh paint and old wood. Somewhere in the classroom, Lily was teaching 2 younger children how to draw dragons. "Sometimes I feel angry," Clara admitted, "not just at Damien or Vanessa, at everything. At how easy it was for people to take from me because they knew no one would ask questions." Adrian nodded. "Anger can be useful. It doesn't feel useful. It rarely does at first." She looked at him. "Were you angry after Elise?" "Yes." "What did you do with it?" "Wrong things first." Clara appreciated that he did not pretend otherwise. "Then Lily forced me back into the world. Children have a way of needing breakfast even when grief believes time should stop. Clara smiled faintly. Adrian looked toward the classroom. She likes you. I like her. She trusts you. I would never hurt her. I know. The simplicity of his trust made Clara's heart ache. She turned the cup in her hands. Adrian. It was the first time she had used his first name without thinking. He noticed. So did she. But neither corrected it. Yes. Do people ever stop feeling poor? He did not answer quickly. Then he said, I think people stop feeling poor when they stop believing everything good can be taken because someone richer wants it. Clara breathed in slowly. That may take a while. I know. He did not say he would wait. He did not have to. Winter came early that year. The city glittered with holiday lights, and Belmont Estate filled with the sound of children attending foundation programs. Lily insisted on decorating every doorway with paper snowflakes. Clara helped her cut them in uneven shapes, laughing when Lily declared the crooked ones more artistic. One afternoon, Mr. Langford arrived with news. Clara was in Adrian's office, reviewing scholarship applications when the banker entered. He held a folder. She knew immediately. Adrian stood. Edmund. Mr. Langford looked at Clara. The court approved the reversal. Clara's pen slipped from her fingers. Mr. Langford's voice softened. Your family home will be returned to you. The transfer was found to have been executed under fraudulent circumstances. Mr. Voss will be liable for damages, though collection may take time. Clara stared at him. Returned. Her parents' home. The narrow kitchen, the cracked steps, the garden with basil pots. She stood too quickly and had to grip the desk. Adrian moved, then stopped himself, letting her have the moment without crowding it. Are you sure? She whispered. Mr. Langford smiled, quite sure. Clara covered her mouth. For months she had told herself the house was only a building, that home could be rebuilt elsewhere, that justice mattered more than walls. All of that was true. And still, the thought of turning the key in her mother's door again broke something open inside her. Lily burst in moments later, apparently having overheard from the hallway. Miss Clara, you got your home back. Clara laughed and cried at once, yes. Lily threw her arms around her. Then we need cake. Mr. Langford, who looked like he had not been surprised by anything since 1982, said, a legally sound suggestion. They had cake that evening in the kitchen, not the formal dining room. Mrs. Nora baked it herself, lemon with thick icing. The staff gathered. Lily made a card with a drawing of Clara's house, though she had never seen it. Adrian stood beside Clara as everyone toasted with tea, cider, or whatever they had in hand. To Miss Clara, Mrs. Nora said, who jumped when others froze. To Miss Clara, everyone echoed. Clara looked around at their faces. Once being seen had terrified her. Now it felt like warmth. A week later, Clara visited the house. Adrian drove her, though he offered to send a driver instead. Lily begged to come, but Adrian gently told her Clara might need quiet for the first visit. The house stood at the end of a modest street lined with winter-bare trees. The paint was peeling. The garden was overgrown. One shutter hung crooked. It was smaller than Clara remembered. That made her cry before she even reached the door. Adrian waited by the gate. Take your time. Clara nodded. The key turned with a stiff click. Inside, the air smelled of dust and cold wood. The rooms were mostly empty. Damien had arranged the sale quickly, and the buyers had apparently planned renovations that never happened. Clara walked through the living room, touching the wall where a family photo once hung. She entered the kitchen and saw sunlight fall across the cracked tile. For a moment, she heard her mother humming. Her father laughing. Vanessa complaining that Clara got the bigger piece of bread. Grief rose, but it was no longer alone. Clara opened the back door and stepped into the garden. The basil pots were gone. But near the fence, stubborn and wild, rosemary still grew. She knelt and pressed her fingers to the leaves. Behind her, footsteps stopped at the doorway. "May I?" Adrian asked. Clara nodded. He came to stand a respectful distance away. "It needs work," she said. "Yes, the roof leaks. We can fix that." She looked at him. If you want help." Clara stood, brushing soil from her hands. "I do." The answer surprised both of them. Adrian's eyes softened, then They spent the afternoon making a list of repairs. Not Adrian's contractors sweeping in to erase the past with luxury, but careful restoration. Clara wanted the kitchen tiles replaced with something simple. She wanted the garden cleared, but not redesigned. She wanted the bedroom walls painted the same pale green her mother had chosen. Adrian wrote everything down. At sunset, Clara stood on the porch, looking at the street. "I thought getting it back would make me who I was before," she said. Adrian leaned against the railing. "Did it?" "No," she smiled faintly. "I'm glad." He looked at her. She met his eyes. The space between them changed. It had been changing for months, quietly, patiently, like spring gathering under frozen ground. Clara felt afraid, but not the old fear that told her to run from humiliation. This was a new fear. The kind that came when something mattered. "Adrian," she said. "Yes. I don't know how to trust this." "Us." Her breath caught. He had said the word gently, not as a claim, but as a question. "Yes." He nodded. "Then we don't rush. What if I never become the kind of woman who fits in your world?" His expression grew serious. "Clara, you changed my world." She looked away, tears rising. "I'm not elegant like Elise must have been." "No," he said softly, "you are Clara." The way he said her name made it enough. She turned back to him. "I'm still healing. I know. I may be angry some days. I know. I may need to stand on my own, even when you want to help." A faint smile touched his mouth. "I have noticed." She laughed, wiping her eyes. Adrian stepped closer, stopping with space still between them. "I'm not asking you to step into my life because you need rescue," he said. "You already rescued yourself many times before I met you. I am asking whether someday, when you are ready, you might let me walk beside you." Clara looked at the man everyone had mistaken for poor because he did not worship wealth. She thought of Damien, who had promised her the world and taken her home. She thought of Adrian, who had offered her truth, time, and a place to stand. "Someday," she whispered, "sounds possible." His smile was quiet and bright enough to stay with her all winter. 6 months after the night by the pool, the Lily Vale Foundation held its official opening ceremony. It was not at a hotel ballroom. Clara insisted it be held at Belmont Estate in the renovated carriage house with the staff, program families, lawyers, teachers, donors, and children all in the same room. No velvet ropes, no separate entrances, no table where important people sat above everyone else. The press came, of course. This time Clara did not hide. She wore a simple navy dress and the purple bracelet Lily had made her. Her hair was pinned back. Her hands trembled slightly around her speech cards, but she did not put them down. Adrian stood near the front, with Lily beside him. Vanessa came too. She stood near the back, quietly, wearing a plain cream coat. She had started working for Aunt Myra's small bakery and had sent Clara 3 letters over the months. Clara had answered one. It was not forgiveness yet, but it was a door left unlocked. Damien did not come. His company had collapsed under investigations and lawsuits. He had tried once to give an interview blaming Adrian, Clara, the market, and bad luck. It only made things worse. People who had been cheated by him came forward. Contractors were paid through recovered funds. His name, once printed in society pages with admiration, became a warning. Lady Beatrice sent no message. Lord Malcolm sent a stiff note addressed to Adrian, not Clara, calling the foundation dramatic but perhaps useful. Adrian tossed it into the fire without comment. When it was time, Mr. Langford introduced Clara. She walked to the small stage. The room blurred for a second. Then she saw Lily wave both hands enthusiastically. Clara smiled. "I used to believe dignity was something other people allowed you to have," she began. The room quieted. "I thought if I worked hard enough, apologized quickly enough, stayed invisible enough, no one could take more from me. I was wrong. Invisibility does not protect people. It only protects those who harm them." Adrian watched her, eyes steady. Clara continued, "The night I came to Belmont Estate, I thought I had lost everything. My home, my future, my family, my name. Then a child called for help, and for once I moved before fear could stop me." Her voice strengthened. "I did not become worthy because a wealthy man defended me. I did not become valuable because newspapers wrote about me. I was worthy when I was poor. I was valuable when I was mocked. I mattered before anyone powerful noticed." Mrs. Nora cried openly. Several women in the audience nodded, tears shining. This foundation exists because too many people are told to be grateful for crumbs while others feast on what was stolen from them. It exists because legal help should not belong only to the rich. Education should not be a locked gate. Safety should not depend on who believes you, and dignity should never be a luxury item. Clara looked down at her bracelet. "A little girl once told me I was brave officially. I don't know if bravery works that way. I think most brave people are afraid. They just hear someone calling and decide fear will not have the final word." She looked at Lily. "This is for everyone who called and was ignored. We hear you now." For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the room rose. The applause was not polite. It was thunderous. It shook the carriage house rafters. Clara stood in the sound, overwhelmed, until Lily ran onto the stage and hugged her tightly. Adrian followed, more slowly. He did not embrace Clara in front of everyone. He simply stood beside her, close enough that she felt his warmth, far enough that the moment remained hers. Later, after the speeches and photographs and cake, Clara slipped outside to the garden. Spring had returned. The roses were opening. The air smelled of grass and rain. From inside came laughter, music, and Lily's excited voice explaining to someone that crooked snowflakes were more artistic even in spring. Clara sat on a stone bench beneath an old magnolia tree. A few minutes later, Vanessa appeared. "May I sit?" she asked. Clara nodded. For a while, they watched petals drift onto the path. "You were amazing," Vanessa said. "Thank you. I almost didn't come." "I know. I was afraid people would stare." "Did they?" "Yes," Vanessa gave a small smile, "but I survived." Clara looked at her. Vanessa's smile faded. "I'm still sorry." "I know. I'm not asking today." Clara understood, not asking for forgiveness, not demanding comfort. "That was new." "I'm glad you came," Clara said. Vanessa's eyes filled, but she nodded. After a moment, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small clay pot. "I brought this." Inside grew basil. Clara stared at it. "I remembered Mom's garden," Vanessa said. Her voice broke. "I thought maybe your house needed it." Clara took the pot carefully. The scent rose sharp and green. For a moment, both sisters were back in their mother's kitchen, barefoot and young, while rain tapped the windows and basil leaves dried on towels. Clara pressed the pot to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Vanessa wiped her cheek. I'm trying to be honest. I can see that. It was not everything. But it was something. When Vanessa left, Adrian approached the bench with Lily skipping ahead of him. Lily carried a slice of cake on a plate. Emergency cake, she announced. You disappeared. Clara laughed and accepted it. Adrian sat beside her while Lily chased petals across the grass. Your speech will be quoted everywhere tomorrow, he said. Clara groaned. Don't remind me. It should be. I still hate headlines. Then we'll ignore them. She looked at him. We. He smiled. The word keeps appearing. Clara looked down at the basil pot in her lap. My house is almost finished, she said. I know. I'm moving back next week. I know. She glanced at him, nervous. His expression remained calm, but she knew him well enough now to see the ache beneath it. Lily will miss you, he said. Only Lily. His eyes met hers. No. The single word carried more honesty than any grand speech. Clara's heart beat faster. I need to live there, she said. At least for a while. I need to know I can stand in my own home without ghosts deciding who I am. Adrian nodded. I understand. But, she added, the garden is too big for one person. His face softened. Is it? And Lily promised she was excellent at planting crooked flowers. She is the leading expert. Clara smiled. Maybe you could both come on Saturdays. Adrian's gaze held hers. We would like that. Lily ran back, breathless. What would we like? Gardening on Saturdays, Adrian said. Lily gasped. At Miss Clara's house. If Miss Clara allows it. Lily threw her arms around Clara. Yes, we'll plant purple flowers and basil and maybe a tree that grows cake. Clara laughed. I'm not sure about the cake tree. Papa can buy one. Adrian looked solemn. Even my resources have limits. Lily sighed dramatically. Fine, regular cake then. That was how Clara's life became something she had never imagined. Not a fairy tale where pain vanished. Not a romance where a rich man solved every wound. But a life. On weekdays she worked at the foundation, helping women find lawyers, classes, housing and courage. On evenings, she restored her parents' house piece by piece. On Saturdays, Adrian and Lily came with muddy shoes, seedlings, and pastries from Vanessa's bakery. At first, neighbors whispered. Then they waved. Children began stopping by to help water plants. Mrs. Nora visited and criticized the curtain lengths. Mr. Langford sent an expensive gardening book with a note that said, for legally defensible vegetables. Clara framed the note. Summer warmed the city. The garden grew wild and beautiful. Basil flourished near the kitchen steps. Purple flowers lined the fence, planted crookedly by Lily. Adrian repaired the old bench under the apple tree, though Clara suspected he made the project take longer than necessary, so he had an excuse to stay. One golden evening, Clara found him there, sanding one perfectly smooth edge for the third time. You know, she said, that bench has been repaired for 2 weeks. He looked up. Quality control. Is that what tycoons call loitering? Strategic presence. She sat beside him, laughing. Lily was inside, with Vanessa, decorating cupcakes. The open kitchen window carried their voices into the garden. Vanessa had come by more often lately, not as the sister Clara once trusted blindly, but as someone slowly earning a new place. Adrian set the sandpaper aside. Clara. The seriousness in his voice made her turn. He reached into his pocket and removed a small velvet box. Her whole body went still. He saw it and immediately shook his head. Not that, he said gently. She exhaled, half relieved, half embarrassed. He opened the box. Inside was a key. Not gold, not jeweled, an ordinary silver key on a simple ring. Clara stared. "What is this?" "A key to Belmont," he said. "Not because you need shelter, not because you work there, because Lily and I would like you to know you are welcome whenever you choose." Clara looked at the key. No demand. No trap. No promise that required her to give up herself. Just a door. Open. Her eyes burned. "I have something too," she whispered. Adrian looked surprised as she reached into her pocket and took out a key of her own. "To this house," she said, "not because I need repairs, not because Lily wants cake trees, because I would like you both to know you're welcome too." Adrian's hand closed around the key slowly, as though it mattered more than any contract he had ever signed. For a long moment, they sat beneath the apple tree with keys in their hands, the evening light turning everything soft. Then Lily's voice rang from the kitchen. "Papa, Miss Clara, Vanessa says cupcakes can't be dinner, but I think she's wrong." Clara laughed. Adrian stood and offered his hand. "Shall we settle the matter?" Clara took his hand. This time, she did not let go quickly. They walked into the house together. A year after the night Clara jumped into the pool, Belmont hosted another gathering. But this one was different. There were no relatives measuring worth by diamonds, no guests sneering at servants, no champagne fountains spilling excess into crystal nobody needed. Instead, the gardens filled with foundation families, staff, neighbors, teachers, lawyers, children, and donors who understood that their names belonged on checks, not pedestals. Lily, now taller and more confident, led a group of children in a treasure hunt. Vanessa ran a dessert table from her bakery, cheeks flushed with pride as people praised her lemon cakes. Mrs. Nora supervised everything with the authority of a queen. Mr. Langford sat beneath an umbrella, pretending not to enjoy being handed paper crowns by children. Clara stood near the pool. For months after the accident, she had avoided looking at it too long. Now water shimmered peacefully under the sun. Adrian came to stand beside her. "Thinking?" he asked. "Remembering." He nodded. Lily's laughter floated across the lawn. "She's not afraid of the water anymore," Clara said. "No," Adrian replied, "thanks to you. Thanks to swimming lessons. And you." Clara smiled. A reporter approached then, one Clara recognized from a respected magazine. She had been invited to cover the foundation's anniversary. "Miss Clara," the reporter said, "may I ask one final question?" Clara glanced at Adrian, then nodded. "Of course." The reporter checked her recorder. "People have called your story extraordinary. A poor maid betrayed by her sister, humiliated by billionaires, then defended by one of the most powerful men in the country. How do you describe what happened to you?" Clara looked over the garden. She saw Lily placing a paper crown on Mr. Langford's head. She saw Vanessa laughing with Mrs. Nora. She saw staff members who now had fair wages and names everyone knew. She saw women from the foundation standing taller than when they first arrived. She saw Adrian beside her, not in front of her, not behind her. Beside her. Clara turned back to the reporter. "I would say," she replied, "that people misunderstood the story." The reporter leaned in. "How so?" Clara touched the purple bracelet on her wrist. "They thought it was about a poor maid being rescued by a billionaire," she said, "but it was never about that." "What was it about?" Clara smiled. "It was about a girl who forgot her worth because cruel people kept pricing her too low. Then one day, she heard a child call for help, and she moved before the world could tell her she wasn't important enough." The reporter was silent. Clara continued, "That moment didn't make her valuable. It reminded her she had been valuable all along." Across the lawn, Lily waved. Clara waved back. Adrian's hand found hers, warm and steady. This time, in front of everyone, Clara held on. And when the music began, when laughter rose, when sunlight spilled over the estate that had once tried to shame her, Clara no longer felt like a maid standing at the edge of someone else's story. She felt like a woman standing in the center of her own. Not because she had become rich. Not because a tycoon loved her. Not because the people who humiliated her had fallen. But because she had finally learned the truth no diamond, mansion, betrayal, or headline could change. Her worth had never belonged to them. And it never would again.